Alrighty, so moving on to the next session, we've got Nick now to talk to us about MYOB and what's happening back at HQ.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. So
you tell me you're going to develop a participant now.
No, it's written down. I've got it written down now. No, I mean, it's actually a very good opportunity for me to see what you guys are actually doing with the system, because I'll just give you a bit of an introduction to myself. So I'm Nick Savage-Mady, and I work for MYOB, and I've worked for MYOB for nearly 7 years now. And just give you a bit of an indication of what I actually do on the next slide, actually. There we go. I'm what's known as a product specialist, and what a product specialist actually means is that I'm very similar to what these guys do, but I generally train consultants, so I need to know what's inside the product. So I'm not so much the person who says this is exactly what needs to be in the product, but I can definitely sway the decisions on what should be in the product. And just in terms of my experience, like I said before, I used to be a welder fabricator, so I'm from Sheffield, so Sheffield Steel. I used to build and manufacture stainless steel trays for the food industry and lots of different bespoke fabrications. So really job costing for me is very much a pet subject, because every industry that I go into and every implementation that I used to do, I would go and sit with the clients and work out what is their business process, how do you actually use it, how do you build something. So whether you're building an umbrella all the way through to a big dump truck, I'd actually work out how they do that. And then that's where job costing is really good in terms of being able to adapt to suit all those different needs. Okay. Now, in terms of what I'm going to take you through today is I'm just going to take you through some of the new things really, just in regards to some of the new features that are coming out. And some of these new features are as a whole throughout EXO itself, but I wanted to pick out some of the items that are to do with job costing, centered around what we're talking about today, and ignore the fonts because they're meant to be slightly different, but it looks all futuristic and everything like that. No, exactly, yeah.
I just like your new brand.
Oh yeah. So this is our new brand as well. So this is the marketing people have decided to give us some new fonts. So that means I have a lot of work in terms of collateral and all of the user guides. So got a wee bit of work to do in terms of that. Now, the new features that I'm going to kind of cover off just in terms of what's coming out in, some of these are actually already in 2016.2, and some of these other features will be in 2016.3, which is going to be released next week. Okay. Now, in terms of what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take you through and show you what these features actually mean, rather than just showing you screenshots, because it's a little bit more, obvious of what they're used for, rather than just talking about them. Okay, so the things I'm going to cover off is I'm going to cover off to do with the purchase order grid side of things. I'm going to mention about the extra fields as well and give you a little bit more indication of what they do, and also it says there extra field increases. Now, it's a very small minor thing, but it is a very important thing, because the amount of extra fields before were around about 24, and they've actually increased that because most people want to put their own bespoke items into, because every single industry, and this is what I was saying before, is different. So whether we're doing plastics or whether we're doing wheelchair manufacturing, you've all got your own individual needs within the system, and that's where EXO job costing is fantastic, because you can adapt it to suit exactly what you need. Now, the other thing that we mentioned about as well, which we're talking about the WIP side of things, so how to actually find out what hasn't been released and you've closed off the job, is I can show you this little bit, which is to do with business alerts. And the reason I'm mentioning about this is because when we introduced business alerts, which was probably about 4 or 5 versions ago, we just brought it into play in one little section, and now once that actually worked, then we're spreading it out across the system. So what you'll find is we're actually mapping this out more into different modules, and also allowing different parts of the system to utilize this. And then I'm going to just show you about the stock search templates, and the templates as a whole is actually a very great feature which doesn't get utilized by a lot of clients. Some clients may use it, and also this flows through into our API. So Focus can actually build entirely different screens and use the API to call that, and they can actually use these search templates within those APIs. And also we personally use that in our EXO on the go. So I want to show you what that can do as well. And then the last little bit is just more of a, if I can get it working, because it works on my laptop. So we'll see if we can get that triggered. Now, in terms of what I'm going to show you is, if I just jump across into, if I can get into EXO. Oh, okay, right, thank you very much. Let me just shrink that out of the way. There we go, and that one there. If I can use the mouse. That one there. Ah, okay, thank you very much. Fantastic. All right, so in terms of when I mentioned about the purchase order grid itself, I'll just open up EXO itself, because I guess most of you use actually purchase orders, and I'm sure you all do. Yeah. Now, previously what we actually had was most of the areas within the system have EXO grids, okay? And the only one that really didn't have it was the purchase order side of things, okay? So the grid itself was built completely differently, and the sales orders and the purchase orders were essentially built by two different developers. So one of the things we decided to do in terms of based on clients' feedback was that they needed to have the ability to actually add in the extra fields that we mentioned. So in fact, if I just cancel out that one and just open up this Crown Enterprise one here. Now, in here, what I've got is I've actually got turned on the new grid type system, okay? Now, it obviously doesn't look any different to what you're probably expecting and what you're used to, but what it means is that it now gives me the ability to actually introduce extra visible columns, okay? Now, this in itself is, if I just go into Utilities, when we rolled this out, we actually rolled it out in 2016.2. But what we did was, we try, and I'm saying this tongue-in-cheek, we try to roll things out that don't break the system, okay? And that's why I'm saying it tongue-in-cheek, because I know most of you have dealt with things that have got rolled out. And I'm completely, you know, I know this happens. Now, what they actually did was they actually rolled out, hang on a second, sorry. They actually rolled out the system, and this little feature here was use the old grid is turned on by default. So most of you won't actually see these visible columns and be able to add extra things in because simply it's turned on. So it means that the system will still work how you are used to it working. Okay. Now, if you go through and actually take this off, then it means that you have access to this new grid, and it then means that we can now, if I wanted to, in this instance I've got my purchasing side of things, so I can add in my extra fields of what vessel is the items coming in on, what type of, what origin of, what point of origin, so this is where it's coming from. Now it then means that I can simply just, as you're used to with most parts of the system, you've now got this new ability within purchase orders. So you can now just see that we can have everything dragged in place. We can also have, then I can just save them and take them out of play. But what it actually means is it now means that you can adapt the purchase orders area far better, and exactly the same as what you got in job costing and exactly the same as what you got in sales orders. Okay, so even though it is a small little feature, it is actually quite a major thing that people have been asking about. Okay.
The consultants are nodding.
Yeah. Now, the other thing as well, just to show you, in terms of the extra fields, and yet again, this won't mean a massive, well, it may or may not mean a massive amount to you guys. But what we actually did was, in terms of extra fields, is you can see in here, this is what I've got on my purchase order lines, but if I just cancel out of that one and just show you the job cost header. Now, what we've done is, you're not using the latest version. That's why it's not showing up. Right. Okay. What happened to the XEs I gave? It's all right. It's okay. Yeah. So hang on one second, guys. Yes, it is. Yeah. I can actually. Yeah. Perfect. Let me just undock and redock. There we go. All right, here we go. Okay, so in terms of the extra fields, if I open up this one, you can now see we've got plenty more extra fields. So they've increased it from 24 to 38. Okay, don't ask me why they came up with the number 38. I'm not entirely sure. But the other thing that I would mention is that it now means that from your main screen, so if you're actually in job costing, so if I just jump back to my job costing screen, it means that it actually increases, normally speaking, when you've got extra fields, you've got 3 on your main screen and then you've got the tab with 21. Okay. Now, what it means is that we've now introduced the fact of being able to actually have, on your main screen, you do have the ability to have 5. Okay. So if I go into this one here, you can see that we've got 5 extra fields from that main screen. So yet again, it's just added those extra items that you need to actually be able to see. And then on the, if I had extra fields along here, we'd have another tab with the extra 33 within that tab itself. Okay. Now, like I said before, it probably doesn't mean a massive amount, but in terms of some of the users of job costing are actually getting past that point of we've used all of these fields. Okay. Now, the other thing to note as well is the fact that the extra fields in terms of the API is actually fairly unlimited. Well, not unlimited, it is limited to 100. Okay, so if they're building an entirely different screen, so if Focus have built an entirely different module and they're calling the API. So what an API is, it allows to call the different fields within your system and create a form that you've built. And then it means that all of those fields come through from that. So not only do we have the table that has all of the information for job transactions, we then have the extra 100 extra fields. Okay, so they've introduced that side of things. Now, I just want to mention just in terms of extra fields, because we mentioned about how useful they actually are. And they are incredibly useful if you look at something along the lines of this. And this is where my job coster header, I actually added in a foreman for my extra field. And what I can actually do based on this is I could have a standard edit where I could just type directly into it. And if I show you an example just in terms of the drawing number, it means that's a standard edit. So in terms of my job then we can actually see that this is my drawing number. Okay. Now for this foreman though, what I've actually done is a little bit smarter, because what I can do with it is I can actually do a drop-down selection, a drop-down SQL selection. Now that means I can select from here, but then I can actually say where it's only showing me staff members who are relevant. Okay, so then that means I can actually use my extra fields to limit just down to these 5 people. Okay, so this is where you really think about the extra fields, because you can limit to say, right, when we're actually putting in this extra field, then I'm going to use this table and I'm going to use these resources, but only showing the resources that are for this location. So you can actually add in different kind of parameters to then drive what appears in that drop-down list. Okay, so yet again, this is the amount of power you can get from the extra fields themselves, and hence why we mention about them.
Some great memories coming from over these two over here.
That's good. No, that's what I like. That's good to know.
The extra fields are also a really useful tool in terms of reporting as well. They can be programmed into reports to be an additional filter and things like that. So that's just I know personally put on a lot of extra fields just for report filtering, so that things can be ticked or unticked or whatever, so that they appear in different reports, and that makes the information easier to review if you can sort of break it down into more bite-sized chunks.
We're using it, well, I'm in the process of using it for our service contracts, because we have some that build monthly, quarterly, 6 monthly, whatever. And we had an incident 12 months ago. We had a receptionist at the front desk, and I was looking at it all saying, well, when do these things get billed? Who's supposed to see them? Who's supposed to? No idea. And I was sitting there at reception trying to sort it all out. I thought, gosh, I'm going to chuck some extra fields in Excel. And it's like, as I got the information from the relevant managers, it was like, yes, you can bill that automatically. I don't need to see it. No, I need to see it. Don't bill it till I tell you to bill it. And so I added all these extra fields.
Yeah.
And now the plan now is to just be able to go and report like that. It says right at the start of each month, run it off, tell me what's going to be billed this month, and and whether I can just do it, or whether someone's going to see it, or whether someone's going to actually do the work.
Exactly, and this is where you tailor make it to suit your own business, because if you can record the information and then if you can record these extra fields, then all your reporting can be based on those extra fields. So it means you've got a fully adaptable system based on what you actually do, rather than, oh, let's use this field, let's use this field. Okay, so it's not about renaming fields to then suit your own needs. It's about adding these extra fields into it. Now, the other thing I've just mentioned just on the extra fields is that when you're dealing with lines, so in this instance of the purchase order lines, you've actually got grid columns. So a grid column means you can add it in as an extra visible column, so it means certain people can see that extra field, or you can have it turned off on normal users that don't need to see it. Okay, but the other thing that comes into play as well is on some of the items, and it may be relevant for you guys or not, is there's a little events area which actually triggers, if I add in a stock item, then it pulls through, I've added an extra field for weight, and it draws it through as soon as I update the stock item. Or it'll bring through a dimension, or it'll bring through something like that. Okay, so you add these little extra events into here, and it means that the extra fields can drive those events. Okay, so it can be. Now, what I would say though is, I'm just showing you based on this because they are increasing where they appear. So you can see under job cost header, if you type in a job cost, if you add an extra field for telephone number, for example, then it automatically pulls through the telephone number of the customer onto your job costing header. So on that main screen which we're looking at, it means that as soon as I change who my actual account is, it'll then pull through an extra field, and you can have a foreman who always deals with that company, and it comes through based on that. Okay, so you've really got some powerful underlying factors in terms of that.
I can just,
yeah.
You mentioned ordering the lists, so that any time we're using an extra field where we're doing the kind of filtering thing, we can also choose what order we've got. So you've got something that you need.
Yeah, the resources one for me is the need for staff, because we've had, 12 staff leave, and there's still a list on everything.
Oh,
yeah. Exactly, and that's.
If it's an extra field, we can absolutely change it.
And for me, I'm pedantic. When I brought up the staff list the other day to do the presentation, I went, hang on a minute, there's EXO admin, there's sales, there's like random sales, that kind of thing. So that's where you can really restrict it based on, whether they're active, inactive, whether inactive stock items, and so on and so forth. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention about, which is a very powerful feature as well, is a little bit of a knock-on from the event reasons. Okay, so just give you a bit of history in terms of this is when we had event reason classes, if someone came along and actually changed that supplier, well not supplier, let's say the customer's on stop credit, when you untick that, it would then come up with a warning and say, you could say, you know, yeah. Now, as you can imagine, every single person just went, oh, that'd be great if we could do it for this field, or for this field, or for this field, or for this field. Now, what they did was they actually built a thing called business alerts. Now, business alerts actually allow you to do it based on if I'm saving a sales order, or if I'm saving a purchase order. So as soon as you hit save, what actually happens is, if I'm doing, say, purchase orders, for example, then on this one it says stop purchase orders against locked jobs, okay? Or we could say that don't let someone put in a on a sales order, don't let someone put in a discount of more than 50%. Now what this means is, based on a little bit of SQL, we can actually type into there what we want it to stop on. And we can then also choose whether it's going to be a warning or whether it's just going to block it entirely. Okay? Now, when we look further down, there's actually a full job costing section as well, and we can see save job costing transactions. So if the job has outstanding purchase orders, it should be addressed. So before we actually complete this job, there's outstanding purchase orders. So in a similar kind of principle for the WIP, this is where we could actually put in the SQL down the bottom to then block the job from being completed, okay, or being saved. If it sets to complete and these haven't been signed off, then block it, or pop up a warning, or there's even an extra thing which is under actions. Now in here we could actually create a new action and it creates an email. So it emails the person who's actually in charge of doing this normally to then notify them what the job is, and what actually happens is there's a little thing called @EXO link, and if they have that in there, the email comes up and gives you the job number with a URL, and you can just click directly on it straight through into the job. Okay, so for those ones that don't have the WIP items closed off, you can do that side of things.
As I say, we've got a report I run that does that. And the other thing is that we use the status, staff of the branches can put a job as completed.
Yes.
So I'm the only one that can archive it. So when I go through and I look at all the jobs that are completed, and I'll go in and make sure everything's allocated off, that it's billed fully, that we've been paid, that the WIP's been, all those little bits and pieces, the housework as I call it, and then I'll archive it. And once it's archived, no one other one can.
Yeah.
I've got the initial JC for a reason. JC, job costing, Jesus Christ.
So as we were talking about before in terms of the reporting side of things, this is where it really comes down to how you want to do it. Because if you just want to run off a report to show, right, these are all the ones that I need to check, or do you want to be notified on your phone of, you know, this is the next job to actually do, or this has just been completed, I need to go and check it. So it gives you that extra little level of ability.
Couple of extra options that are in here, and you can actually set that to send straight up to the client. And so you can have certain kinds of actions.
Yeah.
And you can email invoices. Yeah. You can't email invoices with statements on that. I can set up things to do that, but that's SQL triggers.
But yeah, on that where save debtor invoice, that can be set to kind of send out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, not send out an email, but that can notify them that, you know, the stock's been supplied or such.
Yeah. But the one other option that is touched on in there is that all these rules can be applied to only certain staff members. So you might have someone who does not more acts and warnings. So you can make a warning to most people, and you could block just one staff member from doing something. Because you don't trust them or because they're just being too combative.
What I'm not seeing is this.
Now, the other thing just to mention as well, just in terms of, like Will mentioned, is that you can apply to all users or set it to be, you know, who it's actually relating to. So if it's sales orders and you don't want or quotes, you don't want the quote to be, you know, they've given a 50% discount, then you can just apply it to your sales team. The other thing that I'll mention as well is that the bit within 2030, so this came out in 2016, I think it was 2015.1 actually, but in 2016.3 they added in this accounts area. So if you save a debtor, you can set events against debtors, stock items, contacts, serviceable units. Now this means that, say for example, especially with creditors, if the bank account number changes, you can set up one against that. So it means that if someone goes in and changes a bank account number and then tries to do a payment process, then it triggers and blocks them. Or you can actually set it up in terms of, if I just show you in this, you can set it up as silent and it tracks it. So it tracks it behind the scenes, and then you can run reports based on the information in that table. And it'll give you the username, it'll give you the actual timings, so you can see, not just for bank accounts, but if someone's doing the incorrect process and you want them to always fill out order number, you can track this and then re-educate them based on that.
Okay. We're using business alerts. I've got like the sales team, we've got the GM's under 20%, the customers on stock credit, it's one I want to add in is it's under $200, because if the item's under $200, we don't discount it. So
yes.
Discount under $200. We're using it around our service contracts with things like with the council, because the purchase order numbers change every month, and we can advance notice what that purchase order number is, and that's the purchase order number we use for all service for the month. So we can I just pop in an update business alert and say, please use PO 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for July 2016. So it saves the girls that are doing the data entry at the front counter.
Yeah,
trying to remember all
they need to do the quick stuff. Yeah, exactly. And just also bear in mind, all your extra fields will incorporate into that. So if you've added your extra fields, then it incorporates into your business alerts. So you've really got the system actually doing the work for you. And like we said, if we're entering all the information in and doing the data entry, then it means that someone else can, pick up on the things that need to be done and then train them to do what they need.
Well, what was the table we needed to give us a credit report slide? Is it in the pipeline?
Yeah, that's true actually. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll find out actually. Yeah, I'll ask our product manager actually and find out. You can actually do, so business alerts on serviceable units as well. So if I just so this is only introduced in 2016.3 though. So I mean, there's no example of a rule set up in there at the moment, but that is actually when you save the serviceable unit, then it triggers based on that. So
we've actually used that on some of ours where we have a service maintenance contract with client for $500 per service or whatever it is. If we've got a trigger on the extra field, if we've got a quoted amount rather than time materials, it pops up saying service unit has a quote. Do you want to proceed? So it's a override function. It's just a trigger for me I'm doing the billing, knowing that I'm billing time materials for.
I mean, one of the reasons, like Tony mentioned, is actually to replace a lot of triggers, because a lot of triggers get built into the system to do a lot of things that this actually does now. And the reason we've done this is because triggers can interrupt certain flows, and that's where we try and detract away from that. So with this, it means that you can actually run it via this alerts area rather than building in extra triggers.
And that gives you the ability as users to write and change these, to try and take on writing a trigger in SQL in the database and then prompting that through in the front end of your
So the SQL of this is just much bigger, what it is.
No, you need to learn how to do SQL. Yes, you do. Yeah. And within the help files themselves, there is actually a list of all the kind of, trying to think of the word for it now. Well, yeah, database diagrams, but also the syntax that you actually need to use. It'll tell you what you can actually use. No, it's not. Anyway. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention as well was to do with this little area, because I know, obviously, I think we're over time now, aren't we? Yeah. Now, in terms of stock templates, what this actually allows you to do is we can do search templates, and search templates, I'll just point out more usefully, is under this stock one here. And what this allows me to do is, if I'm actually doing a purchase order, So if I look at, where is it now? 1 second. If I look at this one here. Now, what I can actually do is, I can go through and put in a bit of a script, and it means that, in fact, I'm not on the right one. Supplier stock, here we go. So this one actually, strange, okay, there we go. So this one actually goes through, and whenever I raise purchase order, it means that when I pop up the stock box, it shows me that this is what the supplier actually, normally supplies for me. Okay. Now it means that I can actually set these up, or I can say for sales orders only show the stock items that this, salesperson can actually use, and you can tie in an extra field based on that. Now from here, if I just do a preview, I can just see what information is going to be pulled through based on this query. I can also say where it gets shown. So I can say that it's only shown in purchases and it's shown in the API. So if yet again I've built an API, I can pull this through and I can say which users it relates to. Now a lot of this means nothing right now, okay, but what it means is that if I go back into my job costing, for example, and go into purchases and create purchase order, if I pick out, let's just find a supplier, so if I pick out Aussie Car Parts, then when I go and select a stock code, I can then just go supplier stock, and they're the items for Aussie Car Parts. Okay, so you can tweak the SQL just to say this is what I want to look at. So for the sales side of things, you saw what were the last 10 products that were supplied to this customer, or what the 100 top selling items, and you can build this. And it simply means that you, instead of having different filters, which we used to have, we can just have those there, and we can just bring it back to normal in terms of that. Now,
so that every time you bring up purchase order, it defaults to supplier stock.
It defaults to supplier stock. It's a good question, actually. I'll probably have to. I'm not sure. I don't think you can actually, yeah. No, but I'll inquire. I'll inquire just to see if there is any ability or any kind of option in the pipeline. The other thing is, I know for sales orders on the go, this can be utilised as well. So if you've got people out on the road doing that side of things, you can link that through as well. Okay. Now, just the last thing in terms of last thing really is, this is a very minor thing, but for me personally, it's a great thing as well, is that you can see if I want to bring on purchase orders, I've got it there, and I can just get rid of it. I've got stock search, there we go, so I can get rid of that. Now, I know you don't really notice, really doesn't make a massive amount of difference, but you can see that the actual elements of the system are now split. So instead of just opening up EXO Business and job costing, if I go out of here, so for example, no. Now if I close out of this and go back into my job costing, it means that I can open up purchase orders, I can open up plan maintain jobs, and then simply I can just tab between things. So like I said, it's not a very big deal, but it actually is quite a big deal. Because if I then choose to close one of these, it means not everything closes down, and you can flick back to things. Okay? And also, if you really want to get fancy, different colorations. Now, they've just brought this in because of the modernization of Windows 7 and Windows 10. They've just introduced these side of things. Now, I left them to last because they are just purely cosmetic, but being able to tab between different screens is one bugbear of a lot of people. Okay?
Even just now, I think it was 2015.1, you brought in the actual named tabs on the bar along the bottom that just used to be all the same, so you couldn't differentiate between which one was job costing and which one was distribution advantage. That was revolutionary for us, really, just that.
Now,
funny little things that make a difference, or what seem to be little things that make a difference.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to show you. Oh yeah, I can just log in and do whatever now. Great. This is brilliant, Sarah. Now, the last thing I just wanted to show was when it comes to the evolution of EXO, we're always listening to the clients, even though sometimes it doesn't seem like it. But we introduced this probably, I'm trying to think, about 6 months ago, I think it was. No, it might have been a little bit longer, actually. Now, this is the ideas portal. And generally speaking, what would happen is you guys would ask for an enhancement. It'd get logged in a thing called Archie. And I was laughing when we were talking about systems and how we had to get 5 different branches integrated into one system and working. MYOB is quite bad at doing that as well, because we have our business, we have our SME division, we have our enterprise solutions, we have our practice solutions, which are accountancy, and then we buy Greentree, we buy IMS, we buy Ace Payroll. All of these have to come into one, and we use a thing called Archie. Now, as you can imagine, it's very hard to monitor all of these enhancements. So what they did was we actually built this for EXO Business and for MYOB Advanced, and it means that the partners can actually log enhancement requests, and then people can actually go in and vote on these enhancement requests. So all of the business partners actually vote on these to say, oh yes, that's a massive bugbear, and this is what actually drives the new releases. Okay, so the last 3 releases have been based on this. Okay, so it means that we're getting more relative kind of feedback from you guys and then pushing it through. And you can see under here, future consideration. I can even actually go on and say under planned, we can see these are the items that are actually planned, and that's what it's all based on. Okay, and then the shipped bit, I'll actually tell you what gets shipped. There you go, purchase order EXO grid, simple ledger posting with presets that can be run without. I don't know if anyone knows about that either. The fact that you can run post a GL just by a scheduled task. So you don't even have to go in and do that. It'll just run straight away. Yeah, that was 2016.2. So I just wanted to show you that because even though I've gone through these items here, I wanted to just explain the whole process of enhancements now has actually altered, and you'll find that a lot more features will come through based on what you guys want.
So when you guys as users make these suggestions to us in the past, we've logged them in Archie, and there hasn't been a lot of visibility from us. You know, we haven't been able to see whether MYOB are even considering them or whether they think there's something else in the system that can do that. So that gives us now the ability to keep you updated on feature requests that you've asked us for, and we can say, oh no, MYOB planning this in the next install and things like that. But it gives us that information that we didn't previously have.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks. Any questions for that, Liza? Question?
Not to do a job costing. If you've got a wholesale company with multiple branches, with stock and purchasing, you've got your main supplier on your details one stock tab, and you can have alternate suppliers and all the rest of it, that's fine. But every branch potentially buys from a different supplier. They might be child creditors of a head office, or they might, in some cases, we've got the same creditor set up with different branches because that's how the supplier wants to deal with each branch. And we get problems with people ordering the product
from the wrong supplier, so it costs more. Yeah, exactly.
It's really messy. So with the new, I was just trying to think of either the extra fields or.
Yeah, I'm just wondering. I mean,
you
could potentially do that.
Siemens, for example, our major business partner, they're our master accounts on stock items as the primary supplier, but each branch has a branch account. Siemens, Christchurch, Wellington, Dunedin, so we've got a similar issue.
Yeah.
We looked at using, we started to do something around restrict purchases to a supplier. So we're looking at using, we're looking at using a trigger that says that if it's a Christchurch-based staff member, they can only use Christchurch account. But that didn't kind of fire either, because when we're down our frontline administrator, then one of the other fields will jump in and do their work. So
because
we're still kind of playing around.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the things is the supplier stock table. I'm just wondering if an extra field could be added into that, and then a business alert could be fired based on that. So,
whether a branch could be added to.
I just can't think of what's the easiest way.
Well,
I use business
And
Yeah.
you can do the branch selection.
yeah, I'd use a business alert to do that side of things.
And what would a branch on?
You could use the extra field to do a lookup of your branches to select it again.
So when you set up your alternative suppliers for that stock item, add an extra field into that table that actually loads when it pops up, and then have that extra field as the branch. So for this branch, we buy it from this supplier, and then when you raise a purchase order, you then get the alert to say this should be this. I know what you mean. Yeah.
70,000 stock lines. That's a lot of maintenance.
Yeah.
It's almost like doing it from the supplier
You can do it.
side rather than the stock.
I can talk to you later.
Yeah.